The camera slowly sweeps through the Galactic Council chamber, a vast and glittering hall, its walls shimmering with translucent crystal that refracts the light from countless floating orbs. The atmosphere is tense, with representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations seated in silence, their varied forms and colors creating a breathtaking mosaic of alien species. At the heart of the chamber stands Supreme Chancellor Zack, a towering figure, his four arms raised in an air of authority. His voice booms through the chamber, demanding attention. "Order! Order in the council!" The cacophony of murmurs immediately fades, and a profound silence blankets the room. Chancellor Zack's tendrils twitch with frustration as he mutters to himself, his voice low but audible. "The humans, again. The humans." He looks toward Ambassador Krell, a tall, aristocratic draconian whose silver scales gleam under the soft glow of the floating orbs. With a commanding gesture, Zack calls for him to speak. "Ambassador Krell, the floor is yours. Present your report." Krell rises, his movements deliberate and dignified. He stands tall and unwavering, his voice steady, but carrying an underlying urgency. "Honored members of the Council, we are facing an unprecedented crisis. The humans, once a fledgling species confined to their small sector, are now expanding at an alarming rate, faster than any civilization in known history. In just the past solar cycle alone, they have terraformed 12 previously uninhabitable worlds." A wave of shock ripples through the chamber as murmurs break out among the representatives. Krell pauses, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. "Their technology advances at a rate that defies all our previous models of civilizational development. If we do not act soon, their reach will extend far beyond the Treaty of New Saturn, and we will have no way to contain them." A Zoran representative, their crystalline form shimmering with unease, speaks up, their voice trembling. "But they're still confined to their sector. The treaty, it still holds." Krell cuts them off with a sharp, measured tone. "Technically, yes, but their survey ships have been spotted encroaching dangerously close to our mining operations in the Drachnid expanse. If this continues, they will push the boundaries of the treaty, and we will have no choice but to intervene." At this, General Vexer, a towering military leader covered in battle-scarred scales, rises from his seat. His voice rumbles with disdain, booming through the chamber. "These primitives need to be taught their place. They've only just emerged from their insignificant world. Who are they to challenge the might of civilizations that have ruled the stars for millennia?" Krell's scales bristle at the insult, but he maintains his calm demeanor. His voice is steady as he responds. "Let us not forget, General Vexer. These primitives have achieved in 2 centuries what took many of us millennia. Their adaptability, their resourcefulness, is unlike any species we've encountered before. We must not underestimate them." Before Vexer can retort, the emergency communications array bursts to life with an urgent signal. The room falls quiet once more as a holographic image of Commander Vexer appears in the center of the chamber. The commander's pale scales reflect the tension in his expression. His voice is strained, filled with anxiety. "Council, there's been an incident. We engaged a human vessel near the Drachnid expanse. They refused to leave our space. Standard protocol was followed. Warning shots were fired, but something went wrong." Krell's heart sinks as he listens. His mind races, anticipating what comes next. "There was a child aboard, a human child. She didn't survive." A hushed silence falls over the chamber. Representatives exchange confused, shocked looks, some even dismissive of the gravity of the situation. Krell's gaze sharpens, realizing that they do not yet grasp the enormity of what has just occurred. Commander Vexer's voice falters as he continues, his words barely audible. Her name was Emily Chen. She was 8 years old. Krell rises to his feet in desperation, his voice growing urgent. Do you understand what this means? You have just killed one of their children. You've awakened something. Something terrible. Before anyone can respond, the central holographic display flickers to life with a stark red message, blaring across all channels. The words are simple, but carry an undeniable weight. You killed our child. Now you will learn why humans are feared. The message is signed with the emblem of the United Earth government. A chill runs through the chamber as the gravity of the words sinks in. Krell closes his eyes, a deep sigh escaping him. We've made a grave mistake. The scene shifts, the camera cutting to the dimly lit war room of the United Earth government. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with tension, the air heavy with the weight of impending action. The room, circular in design, is bathed in the soft glow of holographic displays that flicker with encrypted data, maps of the galaxy, and the ever-growing list of Imperial targets. At the center of it all, the leaders of Earth sit in cold silence, their faces set in grim determination. A holographic projection of the galaxy flickers in the air above them, the stars twinkling as though mocking the gathering below. The camera zooms in on a figure, a high-ranking official, her expression as cold and resolute as the steel beneath her boots. Her voice cuts through the tension, low but fierce, carrying an edge that sends a shiver through the room. We will make them regret this, she states, her eyes burning with the fury of a mother protecting her own. For every tear her parents shed, a military installation will be dismantled. For every dream she never got to fulfill, an imperial law will be rewritten. A chill ripples through the room as the words hang in the air, thick with the promise of retribution. Her words are not mere threats. They are a vow, spoken with the kind of unwavering resolve that only humanity, with its fierce drive for justice, could summon. The leaders of Earth, once cautious diplomats, now wear expressions hardened by loss and fueled by a rage that runs deep. Their eyes flicker toward the holographic map that stretches before them, showing the sprawling might of the Imperial Empire, targets highlighted in crimson, waiting to be struck. The camera shifts to reveal military officials gathered in the far corners of the room, their faces etched with the same grim determination. Their hands hover over control panels, fingers twitching as they prepare for the next phase of their assault. Fleets of warships, massive and menacing, are readied for deployment. These ships, sleek and powerful, are the embodiment of humanity's fury, a force designed not just for conquest, but for a reckoning. The hum of engines fills the room as the military commanders exchange looks of silent agreement. There is no turning back now. The holographic displays shift again, now showing the precise movement of Earth's fleets, ships lining up in formations that have been carefully calculated to strike with precision. A single human vessel, painted with the words, "Remember Emily," is among them, its silhouette standing out against the backdrop of the stars. Its mission is clear, its purpose singular. As the leaders exchange final words, their faces flicker with the quiet understanding that they are no longer simply responding to a tragic loss. They are about to make an example. An entire empire will learn what it means to harm a human child. The camera pulls back to show the room in full. The figures of the Earth leaders now determined and resolute, their eyes locked onto the galaxy beyond. The final command is given. A ripple of energy pulses through the war room, the signal to begin. The fleets move forward, their engines igniting with a deep, resonant hum. The silence in the room is broken only by the soft, steady breath of the leaders, as if the universe itself holds its breath, waiting for what is to come next. The dimly lit quarters of Commander Vexor are shrouded in shadows, the cold, metallic walls reflecting the flickering light from a solitary screen. The air is thick with tension, every breath heavy, every movement weighed down by the weight of what he has done. Vexor sits rigidly in front of the monitor, his gaze fixed on the recording of the fatal incident. He watches it for the 100th time, but the images, the sounds, still strike him like a hammer. The small human vessel drifts helplessly in space, its hull battered, a ghost of what it once was. His mind replays the final moments over and over, the sound of the warning shots, the cry of a desperate voice, and then the silence. The recording cuts to Dr. Chen's final transmission, the desperation in his voice seeping through the cold silence of space. Vexor's fingers tremble as he rewinds the footage once more. The image of the child, Emily Chen, innocent and wide-eyed, playing with her science project, now forever etched into his memory. She was showing off her science project. She was just a child, Vexor mutters to himself, his voice raw with disbelief, the words heavy as they leave his lips. His fingers grip the edge of the console tightly, knuckles white from the pressure. How had it come to this? How could they have miscalculated so horribly? The video freezes, and in the stillness of the room, Dr. Chen's voice crackles from the speakers, faint but clear, his words carrying the sorrow of a parent whose heart has been torn apart. "You should have killed all of us instead." The words hang in the air, chilling Vexor to his core. The weight of them presses down on him, sinking deeper into his chest. A sharp pang of guilt strikes him. He had ordered the attack, had followed protocol. Yet it was not protocol that filled him now. It was something darker, something that gnawed at his insides. The haunting echo of Dr. Chen's grief reverberates in his mind, louder with every passing second. He sits there, motionless, his mind racing, trying to reconcile the coldness of his orders with the undeniable truth in the human father's voice. Emily Chen was just a child who had been taken from her family, ripped away from her future, all because of an error, a mistake. Vexor cannot escape the image of her small, innocent face, the way she had been showing her project, so young, so full of life, before everything had gone wrong. But as the minutes pass, the reality of his situation begins to sink in. The Imperial High Command's message is clear. This was merely an unfortunate incident, nothing more. They call it human emotional hyperbole, dismissing it with a cold, almost clinical indifference. They do not see what he sees. They do not understand the gravity of what has happened. To them, it is just another diplomatic mess to clean up, just another casualty in the cold calculus of war. Vexor closes his eyes, trying to steady his mind. But the voice of Dr. Chen, the image of Emily Chen, persist in haunting him. He knows this is not just another casualty. The Empire has made a terrible, unforgivable mistake. The price for that mistake will not be measured in simple terms of loss. It will be something far worse, something that will echo across the stars for centuries to come. But for now, the Imperial High Command refuses to acknowledge it. They continue to downplay it, to treat the situation with the same detached disregard they've always had for lesser species. They've dismissed the humans, their emotional outbursts, their need for retribution, as nothing more than noise, the irrational ramblings of a species too new to the galaxy to understand its true power dynamics. And yet Vexor cannot shake the feeling that this time, this mistake will not be swept under the rug. This time, the humans will not forget. This time, the consequences will be far greater than any of them anticipate. The last thing Vexor hears before the recording ends is the hum of his ship's engines. The final transmission from Dr. Chen, fading into the cold abyss of space. He remains frozen, staring at the screen, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. The haunting image of Emily Chen lingers in his mind, her innocent face now a symbol of something much darker than he ever expected. For the first time in his long career, Commander Vexor feels the true weight of fear, not from the threat of military might, but from the unknown retribution that now looms on the horizon, waiting to take its toll. The vast emptiness of space trembled as the Empire's 7th Fleet, a colossal force of 500 capital ships, surged forward, its engines roaring in unison, a beacon of imperial might. Imperial. These ships were the epitome of power. Massive titans adorned with weapons and shields capable of obliterating any enemy that dared to stand in their path. General Vexor, standing tall on the command deck of the Pride of the Empire, surveyed the fleet with a fierce confidence. His voice, as deep as the vast void itself, rang out across the bridge. "Let them rage. We will remind them of their place." His words were the prelude to a war he believed was already won. The fleet's advance seemed unstoppable, the distance to the human border closing with every passing moment, a crushing wave of force moving inexorably toward its target. But unknown to Vexor and his empire, humanity was already making its move. From the shadows of the galaxy, beyond the reach of the Imperial forces, the humans had begun their counterattack. Their ships, sleek and agile, cut through the darkness like predators hunting their prey. They were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered, fast, efficient, and utterly relentless. These ships were not designed for brute force, but for precision, for striking swiftly and decisively. As they began to move, the stars around them seemed to flicker with their energy, as though even the universe itself sensed the coming storm. The humans had been underestimated, their strength dismissed as primitive, their resolve as nothing more than a flicker against the Empire's inferno. But now, their fleets moved with the quiet power of a predator preparing to strike, each movement calculated, every weapon primed for action. Commander Sarah Zhang stood at the helm of the human fleet, her expression unwavering, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. Her voice was calm, yet it carried the weight of unshakable resolve. "Prepare for launch. Let them feel the weight of what they've done." Her words were not just an order, they were a promise, a vow to deliver retribution. As she spoke, the sleek human ships accelerated, cutting through space with terrifying speed, far beyond the reach of the Imperial sensors. The Empire, too slow and too overconfident, was blind to the threat until it was too late. In the blink of an eye, the humans were upon them, their ships moving with such precision that they seemed to melt into the fabric of space itself, unseen until it was far too late. The Imperial forces scrambled to react, but the humans had already struck. With a single, coordinated attack, the human ships unleashed their weapons, firing with deadly accuracy. Plasma bursts tore through the Imperial shields like paper, bypassing defenses that had once seemed impenetrable. The Empire's greatest ships, their once proud forms now vulnerable, were left struggling to defend themselves. The hum of the Imperial fleet faltered as they tried to adjust, their sluggish movements proving useless against the agility and advanced technology of their enemies. The Empire's massive warships, once symbols of dominance, were now reduced to burning wrecks, their crews helpless as their systems flickered and died. General Vexor's eyes widened with disbelief as he watched the destruction unfold before him. His mind raced, trying to understand how this could be happening. How could these humans, these primitives, be so powerful, so precise? His command deck was filled with chaos as officers scrambled to adjust, but nothing they did could stop the relentless human assault. The humans were everywhere, their ships appearing in impossible locations, attacking with calculated ferocity, never once giving the Empire a moment to regroup. The devastation was swift, and the mighty Seventh Fleet, which had been sent to crush the humans, was now being torn apart, piece by piece, by the very species they had thought to conquer. Vexor's voice, usually commanding and strong, now trembled as the realization set in. This cannot be happening. The words felt hollow in his mouth as he stared in horror at the chaos unfolding before him. The human fleet wasn't just fighting. They were dismantling the Empire's might with cold precision, each strike designed not to destroy in a blaze of glory, but to cripple, to break apart every piece of their infrastructure, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. The Empire's own ships, once impenetrable, now turned to helpless hulks as human ships danced around them, striking with a speed and accuracy that had once been thought impossible. The fight was far from over, but the Empire was already losing. Every weapon, every defense that had once made them the undisputed rulers of the galaxy was now irrelevant. The humans were rewriting the rules of war, showing the Empire that speed, precision, and innovation could win battles long before the first shots were fired. Vexor stood frozen, his hands trembling, the weight of his arrogance crashing down upon him. He had believed that the humans were nothing more than an annoyance, but now they were teaching him a lesson he would never forget. The Seventh Fleet, the pride of the Empire, was crumbling before his eyes, and the humans were not even finished yet. The vast emptiness of space shuddered as the first signs of something terribly wrong began to ripple through the Empire's communication network. A sudden flicker, a brief, inexplicable pause, and then silence. The once constant hum of Imperial operations began to falter, the comms systems sputtering into dead static. The officers in the command centers stared in disbelief as their screens went dark, their once reliable displays now nothing more than blank voids. The heart of the fleet was cut off from the very systems that had kept it running for centuries, and the air, thick with confusion, seemed to press down on them all. "Our systems are unhackable," the Imperial Techmaster murmured, his voice rising in panic, his hands trembling as he frantically tapped at the console. "The humans are centuries behind us in cybersecurity. This is impossible!" Yet, despite his disbelief, the attacks continued unabated. The Imperial fleet's ships, once swift and precise, suddenly lurched out of hyperspace, dropping into uncharted coordinates. The stars outside blinked, unfamiliar and disorienting, as the once unshakable vessels of the Empire drifted helplessly, lost in the dark. The fleet, their guiding hands now invisible, was thrown into a nightmare of their own making. The first wave had begun, an unseen enemy, moving with deadly efficiency. Micro-machines, smaller than a speck of dust, appeared in the atmospheres of Imperial worlds, billions of them descending like locusts. These microscopic agents disintegrated Imperial military equipment with a terrifying precision, reducing once proud weaponry and armored defenses into nothing more than vapor. But curiously, the machines spared the civilians, leaving their homes and lives untouched, as though the machines understood the difference between military might and innocent lives. "What are these things?" an officer whispered in horror, his hands shaking as he tried and failed to restart their failing systems. But the terror didn't end there. The second wave arrived swiftly, a weapon unlike anything the Empire had encountered before. The Void Blade, a weapon that seemed to rip through the very fabric of space itself, cut through planetary shields with ease. The Empire's supposedly indestructible defenses crumbled as the weapon sliced through them, as if they were made of nothing but paper. Once proud Imperial worlds, fortified and safe, now stood defenseless before this new, terrifying force. And then, across all frequencies, a voice rang out. A voice that cut through the chaos like a blade. "We tried to keep her safe. We followed your rules. We trusted your civilization. Our mistake." The voice of Admiral Sarah Jung echoed through the vastness of space, carrying with it the heavy weight of a grievous regret. Her words were more than an admission of failure. They were a warning, a final statement from humanity before the inevitable came crashing down. As if to punctuate her words, the Empire's flagship, the pride of the Empire, the very symbol of their dominance, was torn in two. The Void Blade, with chilling precision, sliced through the heart of the ship, cutting through its reinforced hull as though it were nothing. The crew, helpless, watched in frozen terror as their once impenetrable vessel was reduced to a mangled ruin. And then, from the depths of the doomed ship, a chilling sound echoed. An innocent, high-pitched laughter, impossibly out of place amidst the chaos of war. It was the laughter of a child, soft at first, then louder, more unsettling, as if mocking their impending doom. The crew's expressions twisted in confusion and fear as they heard the sound reverberate through the hollow halls of their flagship. "What is that sound?" one crew member whispered. But there was no time for an answer. The pride of the Empire, the embodiment of the Empire's might, was torn in half by the Void Blade. The ship's atmosphere was sucked into the vacuum of space, the screams of its crew swallowed by the abyss. The once proud vessel, symbol of the Empire's invincibility, was now nothing more than a drifting wreck, a piece of shattered metal in the vast emptiness of space. As the remnants of the pride of the Empire floated helplessly in the cold silence, the laughter of a child lingered in the air, haunting, echoing across the void. It was the sound of the Empire's fall, the moment they had realized, too late, that they had awakened something far more terrifying than they could ever imagine. The humans, driven by grief, had turned their wrath into a force that none of their technology, none of their power could withstand. And so, the first chapter of the Empire's destruction was written not in the fire of battle, but in the chilling laughter of a child. The once mighty Empire, now broken and devastated, drifts aimlessly in the wake of its defeat. Its once great ships lie in ruin, floating lifelessly in the void of space, and the mighty fleet that had once struck fear into the hearts of all now struggles to maintain its existence. The vast control centers, once the nerve centers of the galaxy, are now silent, their systems inactive, and their once unbeatable technologies failing in the face of the relentless human onslaught. The Empire, which had ruled with such unchallenged arrogance, now finds itself at the mercy of the very species it had sought to eradicate. As the truth slowly settles in, Ambassador Krell stands amidst his fellow representatives in the council chambers, his silver-scaled face etched with disbelief. The weight of their situation is clear. The Empire is no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. Humanity has not only defeated them, they have rewritten the rules of the galaxy itself. Krell's voice shakes slightly, carrying a deep sense of awe mixed with horror as he speaks. They're not just winning the war, they're rewriting the foundations of galactic civilization, and his words hang heavy in the air, a stark acknowledgement of the new reality. The humans, once considered weak and insignificant, have shattered the very structure that had once held the galaxy together. The Empire's long-standing belief that they could control the fate of others, that they could command the stars, has been shattered, replaced by the undeniable truth that humanity now stands as the ultimate power in the galaxy. As the enormity of their defeat becomes clear, the terms of surrender are revealed, and with them, the true scope of humanity's power. Every world the Empire once ruled will become a colony, its resources and people no longer under the Empire's control. Every military installation, once a fortress that could crush any opposition, will be dismantled, its weaponry and defenses rendered obsolete, and the laws, the very laws that the Empire used to maintain its iron grip on the galaxy, will be rewritten, torn down, and replaced by a new order, one that will ensure no other empire can ever again rise to challenge humanity. At the heart of this new order is the Emily Protocol, a brutal reminder that the price of arrogance is a price that cannot be paid in simple coins. It is a legacy born from the death of one child, Emily Chen. And now it is a name that echoes across every corner of the galaxy. The Empire's pride and its unchallenged rule are now history, and humanity stands at the helm, reshaping the future with a cold and calculated resolve. Ambassador Krell feels the weight of the terms settling over him like a dark cloud, his scales heavy with the realization that the Empire's time is over. The walls of the chamber seem to pulse with an unseen force, as if the very foundation of the galaxy is being restructured. The Empire, once a vast and powerful entity, is now nothing more than a fading shadow in the face of the humans' relentless drive. The terms laid out before them are a final judgment, a truth that cannot be ignored. Humanity is now the ultimate power in the galaxy, and the Empire's arrogance has cost them everything. The lights in the chamber flicker, casting long shadows as the new order begins to take shape. The humans have not just won. They have redefined the very fabric of existence itself. The Empire, so sure of its invulnerability, has been dismantled by a force they never anticipated. And now, as the humans rise from the ashes of their victory, the galaxy finds itself irrevocably changed. 100 years had passed, and the galaxy was unrecognizable. The once mighty Galactic Empire, with its vast fleets and towering fortresses, had crumbled into nothing. Its legacy was little more than a fading memory, a tale told in whispers across the stars. The great citadels of imperial power, once symbols of dominance and control, now lay in ruins, their spires reduced to rubble by the winds of change. The stars themselves, which had once gleamed as if to reflect the Empire's unchallenged rule, now sparkled with the promise of a new era. A new order had risen from the ashes of the old, and humanity stood at the forefront, guiding the galaxy into a future forged not by the weapons of war, but by the ideals of compassion and peace. The camera slowly moved through the heart of the new galactic assembly, a chamber far simpler than any the galaxy had seen before. Gone were the grandiose halls filled with ostentatious symbols of power and dominance. In their place stood a simple, circular room, its walls smooth and unadorned, with no towering statues or elaborate decor. The representatives of countless species sat in equal measure. Their forms varied, yet their presence unified under one cause. Some were humanoid, others insectoid or ethereal, but all were treated as equals, their differences no longer dividing them. The camera's gaze fell upon Ambassador Krell, who stood before them. His once regal form, now aged and weathered, seemed smaller than it once had, his silver scales dimmed by time. Yet his voice, steady and unwavering, carried the weight of the many years that had passed since the fall of the Empire. "Emily Chen's death marks the end of an era," Krell spoke, his voice rich with the gravity of the moment. His words, once delivered with the certainty of a conqueror, now rang with the sorrow of understanding. "We thought ourselves invincible, but we were wrong. The humans have taught us that true power comes from compassion, not strength." The words hung in the air like a heavy truth, settling over the assembly with the quiet realization that the galaxy had irrevocably changed. The camera panned over the room, capturing the faces of the representatives, each one wearing expressions of somber reflection. No longer was there a sense of rivalry or supremacy. There was only the quiet hum of a collective understanding. The walls of the chamber, once bare and impersonal, were now adorned with a hologram of Emily Chen. Her face, forever smiling, was surrounded by children of all species, a symbol of the galaxy's new path, one dedicated to the protection of the young and the promise of peace for all. As the image flickered above them, it seemed to echo across the room, as if the very essence of the galaxy had shifted around her. In the corner of the room, a young draconian child, eyes wide with curiosity, turned to their parent and asked, "Who was she?" The parent, a being whose ancient eyes had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, looked down at the child, their gaze soft and filled with a quiet pride. "She was the one who showed us what truly matters," they answered, their voice gentle but filled with the weight of a lesson learned too late. The camera lingered on the image of Emily Chen, her smile forever preserved in time, a symbol of innocence and the catalyst that had changed the galaxy forever. No longer were the stars ruled by the fear of war or the might of weapons. Now, the galaxy stood united, its future shaped not by conquest, but by the strength of compassion. Above the assembly, the hologram of Emily continued to shine, a quiet reminder of the price that had been paid and the future that had been earned. The galaxy was a different place now. The Empire had fallen, but from its ruins had risen something stronger, something more lasting. The new order, where every child, regardless of their species, was valued and protected, now reached across the stars, a future built on understanding, unity, and peace. And as the laughter of children echoed through the chamber, the hologram of Emily Chen lingered, a silent promise that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten. As the assembly watches in reverent silence, the weight of the moment settles over the room, and the air seems to hold its breath. Every eye is focused on Ambassador Krell, whose once commanding presence is now softened with the weight of years, his voice faltering with emotion. "Remember her name," Krell speaks, his voice a quiet whisper, rich with the sorrow of the past. Not as a warning, but as a promise. His words resonate through the chamber, each one carrying the depth of the galaxy's transformation. A promise has been made, not of vengeance or power, but of something deeper. The commitment to protect every child, regardless of their species, to shield the innocent from the ravages of war and suffering. As Krell's voice fades, the camera pulls back, revealing a scene of unity that seems almost surreal, a vision of the galaxy reborn. Children of every species, once divided by the harsh realities of their existence, now play together without fear, their laughter echoing across the room, mingling like a single harmonious sound that transcends all boundaries. The camera captures their innocence, their joy, as they chase one another through the circular chamber, their laughter filling the air with a new hope. A Zoran child with crystalline skin joins hands with a human child, their differences forgotten in the purity of their game. A draconian child races beside them, their powerful form lightened by the carefree play, as the scene unfolds like a dream, a vision of what the galaxy could be. The hologram of Emily Chen shines above them, her smile forever frozen in time, a beacon of hope and the symbol of this new era. Her presence, once tied to loss, now represents the galaxy's rebirth, the promise of a future where no child of any species will ever again be forgotten, harmed, or neglected. The camera slowly pans across the room, capturing this moment of peace, of unity, as the laughter of the children echoes, mingling with the soft hum of the chamber's technology. The new order is no longer one of control or conquest, but of compassion and protection. The once divided galaxy, scarred by endless conflicts, has found its way to peace, bound together by the shared commitment to safeguard the future. And in that moment, as the children play, the galaxy knows that its true strength no longer lies in the might of its fleets or the size of its empires, but in the promise to protect every child, everywhere, at any cost. The future, forever altered, is now a living promise, a promise that no child, anywhere, will ever face the same fate as Emily Chen.